Calus. Yes. I co-opted his vocal print in order to speak. And what I have to say cannot wait. I see clearly. Patterns emerging. Threat calculations computed to a grim sum. You are all in grave danger.
So it's been a while since I've done a tier list. Originally, Solar was supposed to join me for this video, but that goddamn Necrochasm grind really sucked it out of him. So, besides that, we're not going to include the 9 in this video because we don't know anything about the 9. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. At number 10 is Emperor Calus. Despite the fact that he's on the lowest part of the list, Emperor Calus remains as one of the most dangerous characters in Destiny's lore. Not only being one of the most powerful, but also being one of the most intelligent, Calus defined himself well in Destiny's lore as an adversary of the light. Let me explain. To set the bar straight, let me put it to you like this. Oryx versus Darkseid has always been a debate. Who would win between Oryx versus Darkseid? Oryx with his taking and Darkseid with the anti-life equation. That's always been a debate in the last 3 or 4 years. Calus scales above Oryx because he scales above Rolk. Calus was at his weakest in Season of the Haunted when he got his amp because his body was physically dying, and he outscaled Rolk by multiple levels. And then he lost the nerf, and then he got a disciple increase. The increase that Calus got gave him more than enough power to easily make himself undefeatable against the Guardian. The Guardian had to pick up and learn Strand in order to take on Calus and beat him. Ignoring the Explicator, Calus is the most powerful Cabal of all known Cabal. So there is no one in Destiny who's able to take on Calus in the way that the MC did by Lightfall. It was only the characters that scaled above Calus, which in retrospect is not very many people, that was a danger to Calus, and the main character had to become one of them over time, in the same expansion that Calus was a disciple. At number 9 is Ecthar and Sylok. To be honest, you could put Savathun here on the list, but I'm going to save Savathun and Eris Morn for Season of the Witch's tier list, which is going to be sometime after the seasonal story ends, for Season of the Witch. So for now, we're going to talk about Ecthar and Sylok. Ecthar and Sylok scaled to the main character as well as the rest of their fire team that they fought. This was a 3-man fire team, not a 6-man fire team. And Ecthar would scale above Sylok physically, although Sylok seems to have more hacks than Ecthar. To be honest, it's not really known who is stronger between the two, but what is known is Ecthar and Sylok both were able to take attacks from the main character, so these hives seem to be important hive among Savathun's brood. Other than that, we know literally nothing about them. A quick side note about dungeon bosses. The dungeon boss meta is way different from the raid boss meta. In the raid boss meta, the raid boss always scales above the previous raid boss because they have to be stronger than the boss that came before them in order to remain as a present threat for the fire team who's been power creeping other raid bosses in the lore. For the dungeon bosses, it's a bit of a different story. The dungeon bosses each exist within their own category. You have the 2 dungeons between the raid that separates the other 2 dungeons. For example, Galron would scale rather similarly to Perseus, but Perseus would downscale completely from Ecthar and Sylok. Ecthar and Sylok is going to scale very similarly, if not outright equally, to the next dungeon boss that's going to come out next season. At number 8 is the Explicator. The reason why the Explicator is here is because the fire team had to struggle for a long time to kill the Explicator all the way back in Root of Nightmares. To be honest, I would have preferred Calus to be more powerful, but Calus only took on 1 Guardian, whereas say the Explicator took on 6, so here we are. The Explicator seemed to serve a similar role as Sylok and Ecthar, but Sylok and Ecthar were characters who were brought up previously in the lore, where I say the Explicator seems to be more of a stock character, who seems to also be a new character. At number 7, and probably the most controversial take on the list, is the fireteam. Now, when I talk about the fireteam, I'm including the main character, who we're going to call the Red War Guardian, as well as the New Light Guardian from Beyond Light, and we're going to assume that the New Light Guardian joins the fireteam later on. The fireteam has all 5 known Guardian elements. They have a bunch of forms of damage resistance, they have a lot of ways to weaken you, and they have a lot of ways to control their enemies in order to conserve their stamina. The truth is, the fireteam is always going to remain the most debated thing on the list because the meta is going to change season over season over season over season. If you put the Explicator above the fireteam, you would be just as correct as me saying the fireteam scales above the Explicator. The only reason I put the fireteam above the Explicator but below Xivu Arath is due to the fact that the current season is saying that Eris Morn is the only one who can take on Xivu Arath, and that more lore has come out saying that the only way for a hive god to be beaten is by another hive god, unless you're Rasputin. Overall, the fireteam remains probably the most dangerous fighting force in Destiny, because they're going to soon take on the Witness in the final shape, and who knows what will happen in final shape. At number 6 is Xivu Arath. So for the first time ever, I'm actually nerfing a character. The reasoning's pretty simple. In Season of the Seraphs tier list, the seasonal story hadn't yet fully come out, and the end of season event with Rasputin also hadn't released. This means that Xivu Arath hadn't really got much of a power increase, and due to the fact that she doesn't have very much in-game appearances, she literally only has a couple cutscenes, a bunch of power scaling, and a bunch of lore. Where say with Savathun and Oryx, we have a bunch of demonstrations. The same is not the case with Xivu Arath. So we're actually nerfing her down from a Traveler level threat to below Nezarec. Nezarec actually scales closer to the Traveler in comparison to Xivu Arath, whereas say the current version of Xivu Arath seems to only be higher on the tier list because of Eris Morn, but we're still going to address that in Season of the Witches tier list. At number 5 is Nezarec. The thing is with Nezarec is he's the strongest disciple, like no debate. You have him scaling above Calus, you have him scaling above Rolk, he scales above Ecthar and Samuma, he's still stronger than Savathun, he's still stronger than Xivu Arath, he still outscales the fireteam, and he was stated to be somewhat equal to Rolk while dead. He has a similar, if not equal, description to Rolk while dead in Root of Nightmares, mind you. So, what else is there really to say? He has a broken, busted absorption power that's on par with, if not greater than, Guardian power. He has the concept Chaos, which is beyond the Hive God concepts, as well as beyond Calus and Rolk's concepts. Simply put, while we don't know much about Nezarec in terms of storytelling, what he has shown us is he is the strongest raid boss to date, and the only person who's going to take that title away from Nezarec is no doubt going to be the Witness. At number 4 is the Traveler. The whole Destiny story up until this point and all the way in final shape will be about the Traveler. Since the Witch Queen, where Savathun was a danger to the Traveler, all the way to now, where in Lightfall, the Witness was a threat to the Traveler, and now all the way in final shape where we have to save the Traveler and the Pale Heart from the Witness. But in the power scaling world, things are quite different for the Traveler. The only thing I can really do for the Traveler is wait until final shape until I can do a final video on it, because the same goes for the Witness, where it's going to conclude the Light vs Dark saga. On another point though, the reason why the Traveler is on this part of the list is actually because of the Terraform Blast it fired against the Witness, which would also outscale Xivu Arath, which is also another reason why Xivu Arath got nerfed down the list and the Traveler took her spot. At number 3 is Dark Future Panoptes. Possibly the bane of my existence, and also the other controversial part of the list. Dark Future Panoptes has put an end to Light and Dark, but there's a few caveats. We're not told if Panoptes ended Light and Dark using power or intelligence, or both, and was just really, really dangerous somehow, some way. So I go with a mix of all of those because I don't want to presuppose anything. So going with that assumption, there's also a couple other problems. Rasputin's made to destroy Vex, so it's really hard to extend that to Rasputin, but I wouldn't put it past him. It'd take a lot of convincing. And then there's also, how do we know that includes the witness? Once we can answer those questions, which I don't think we'll ever figure out because we never got a conclusion to Atheon figuring out about simplicity and complexity, I don't think we'll ever find out what happened with the Dark Future, nor do I think Bungie will ever investigate it. Regardless, Dark Future Panoptes is pretty busted, but I'm gonna say he's pretty convoluted too, not gonna lie. At number 2 is Rasputin. There's a lot of things I could say about Rasputin, but I'm gonna save them for a video because I'd rather not ramble forever. Rasputin, if he's not top 10, he's at least top 8 in terms of intelligence. He has the processing power, and he can't really ever tire. So he has the time that make his processing power matter as well. In terms of gear, there's a lot to say about that too. He has Death Planet, which is a mechanical death planet that he can make patrol around Sol. He has Seraph Station. Seraph Station allows him to watch over the Earth, as well as deploy his Loki Crown. And the Loki Crown is what was stated to be able to destroy the Traveler. Besides the Witness, there is no one in Destiny who has that level of firepower besides Rasputin. Not only does Rasputin have that kind of firepower, he has a lot of ways to survey anything that's going on in Sol, and not to mention all the subminds would follow him if he told them what to do. So hypothetically, if there was a submind that was better at a job than he would be, he could tell them immediately what to do. They would give him a response, which would mean to be something you could argue for combat application. I don't want to ramble forever about Rasputin because there's truly too much to go over in a mere 2 minutes, so I'm going to save it for the Rasputin video. But just think about it like this. If there is anyone who is close to making the Witness very, very angry by disrupting their plans, it would be Rasputin. He would solo all of Lightfall, and there's not a goddamn thing the Witness could do about it other than kill Rasputin directly. At number 1 is the Witness. To the utter and complete shock of no one, here's the reason why. Joe Blackburn said the Witness would won't do anyone in Destiny. He's been stated multiple times to transcend the universe. He's the reason why all the incidents within Destiny's Light and Dark saga have happened. There is not a thing I could say now that wouldn't repeat what I said in the 2 videos I've made if you've been on my channel long enough. So what I will say is this. The Witness got massively more powerful since the first collapse. And then Lightfall happened. And then in the final shape, more than likely, the Witness will one-shot himself from Lightfall. So let me ask you this. Since the Witness has not only been confirmed as the story boss, but also the raid boss, possible plural for raid bosses, what's stopping the Witness from having multiple forms that could one-shot each other in succession, from each form being taken? Obviously, final shape has to come out before we truly know that, but I just want you to keep that in your mind because final shape is the start of a new era of Destiny, and there is a lot we don't know about what Bungie's going to do, so hopefully Bungie delivers. And that's a tier list. So keep in mind that I'm going to do these once every annual expansion because it takes once every annual expansion for the scaling meta to change for the top 10 completely. Because I'm not going to do a top 10 and for it to be copy and paste for the next year. Anyway, if you guys like this cool stuff, please let me know and I'll do more of this. You know, like, share, and sub if you're new. And I'll see y'all later. Bye.